Despite being Australia's first dedicated office to increase visibility and participation in women's sport, it was cruelly and quietly cut in last month's budget. This was the same office that administered the Change Our Game program and meant so much to women and girls across the country, particularly in regional areas like mine, where they haven't been given opportunities to participate and be visible and part of sporting clubs. This cruel and callous cut will have disastrous impacts on women and girls across Victoria, and particularly in terms of participation in sport. I'm going to hand over to Tamitha, who is the Director of Women's Sport Australia, to talk a little bit more about it.
The Office for Women in Sport and Rec is the first of its kind in Australia. It was established in 2014 as a result of an inquiry into women and girls sport recreation. And since its inception, it's been instrumental in creating opportunities for women and girls to participate in all aspects of sport, both at a programmatic but also a systemic level. They've implemented policies such as the Fair Access policy to ensure equitable access to local sporting facilities and balance the board to increase representation for the women in the sector at a boardroom level. Through the Change Our Game platform, they've provided access to programs such as the Women in Sport Media program with over 100 participants, professional development scholarship programs for over 600 participants, and funded various local activations through their Community Activation Grants program. The 2023 State of Play report states that 35% of girls aged 15 to 17 participate in community sport, which is down from 48% in childhood. Only 33% of women participate in adulthood compared to 50% of men, and 1 in 3 women in community sport have considered leaving their club due to inequitable treatment. Supporting the work of the Office for Women in Sport and Recreation and the Preventing Violence Through Sport program, grants program, which has also been cut. It supports organisations to design and deliver primary prevention activities within community sports settings through grants and funding. To have these initiatives cut both at a programmatic and a systemic level doesn't make sense. While government has said they will absorb the functions of the Office for Women in Sport into Sport and Recreation, there's been no correspondence with the sector as to how this will occur, despite numerous organisations writing to the Minister, including ourselves and VicSport on behalf of the state sporting bodies it also represents, requesting this information.
As a female footballer, I can say firsthand that sexism still does exist in sport. It's very real. I started playing 8 years ago and I was just grateful for a chance to take the field. But over time, that gratitude was replaced by a feeling that we don't matter. We've played on Sundays while the rest of the club plays on a Saturday. We've arrived to empty club rooms, no bar, no canteen, because it's just the women playing. We've trained on Monday nights straight after playing on a Sunday game with no time for recovery. Club dinners, well, they're hosted on the nights that the men train, and we're not invited to share the oval, so it's near impossible to attend and connect with the wider sporting group. We've brought home a Premiership Cup, but to an empty club room with barely any club support. While I pay to play every week, most men at a community club are paid to play football. The Office for Women in Sport and Recreation wasn't just about facilities and upgrades. It was a message and it was a movement. But our government believed in a fairer and more equitable future for women in sport. Seeing that taken away tells women and girls in sport that we don't matter.
You might know us from the statewide Red Armband campaign we led, a protest against the Victorian government's cuts to gender equity and violence prevention in sport, and a tribute to the now 35 women who have been killed by violence this year, as tracked by Shirley Moody's Australian Femicide Watch. We receive hundreds of stories from our followers about what that inequity looks like on the ground. Stories like women's teams being forced to train at athletics tracks across town with no facilities, so the senior men don't have to share the oval. 12 and 13-year-old girls sharing the oval with boys the same age and only getting a quarter of the oval, and in one instance hearing the boys' coach yelling, "Just push into the girls' space." Clubs paying C-grade netballers $500 to $2,000 a game because they were the wives and girlfriends of A-grade footballers, using them as pawns to dodge the footy salary cap. And lastly, players walking away from clubs because they feel invisible. One person told us they won a grand final and still weren't invited to the end of season presentation night. These aren't isolated incidents, they're patterns, they're systemic, and they're exactly why these programs must be reinstated. Thank you.